Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Hello, Catholic pilgrims, and welcome to day 243 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. So there's not like a major theme today in our little selection of readings. It's very much like just diary entries, and she's kind of all over the place. At one point, she's going to talk about a sister who asks her some questions and then takes her words and kind of distorts them, which upsets Sister Faustina. She's going to be talking about how we should spend our lives and what we should be striving for, and also that even amidst the storms of life, we have to cling to Christ. And so what I'm going to basically do today is just kind of walk through the different sections today and just kind of touch on each one. So we will be reading today from Notebook 3, numbers 1191 through 1195. As long as we live, the love of God grows in us. Until we die, we ought to strive for the love of God. I have learned and experienced that souls living in love are distinguished in this, that they are greatly enlightened concerning the things of God, both in their own souls and in the souls of others. And simple souls without an education are outstanding for their knowledge. At the 14th station, I get the strange feeling that Jesus is going into the ground. When my soul is in anguish, I think only in this way. Jesus is good and full of mercy, and even if the ground were to give way under my feet, I would not cease to trust in him. Today, I have heard these words. My daughter, delight of my heart, it is with pleasure that I look into your soul. I bestow many graces only because of you. I also withhold my punishments only because of you. You restrain me, and I cannot vindicate the claims of my justice. You bind my hands with your love. July 13th, 1937. Today, Jesus has given me light as to how I should behave toward one of the sisters who had asked me about many spiritual matters concerning which she had doubts. But basically, this was not the question. She only wanted to find out my opinion in these matters in order to have something to say about me to the other sisters. Oh, if at least she had repeated the same words that I had spoken to her without distortions and additions. Jesus, put me on my guard in respect to her. I resolved to pray for her because only prayer can enlighten that soul. Oh, my Jesus, nothing can lower my ideals. That is, the love which I have for you. Although the path is very thorny, I do not fear to go ahead. Even if a hailstorm of persecutions covers me, even if my friends forsake me, even if all things conspire against me and the horizon grows dark, even if a raging storm breaks out and I feel I am quite alone and must brave it all, still, fully at peace, I will trust in your mercy. O my God and my hope, will not be disappointed. So let's start at the first part of our readings today in 1191. Sister Faustina tells us that as long as we live, the love of God grows in us, and we should strive for the love of God until we die. And that's so true. I think sometimes as Christians, we believe that, after a certain point, if we've at least read through the Bible a couple times, if we've watched several Christian videos, if we've read several spiritual books, then we're all done. We're done and we've read enough and we get it. And so we don't need to keep doing any more, and we will coast to the end of our lives, and we love Jesus, and that will be enough to sustain us. But this just isn't the case. And honestly, we have our whole lives, however many days God grants us, to grow in love of God. And you have to think of it like kind of like a married couple. Each year that a married couple is together, they grow in love, or at least they should grow in love. And the reason they grow more and more in love is because each year they learn more and more about each other. They go through different experiences, and through those experiences, they see how the other responds. They help each other through those experiences. They bond over those experiences, and so they grow in love because they've added another level of knowledge. And that's why, people that have been married for 60 plus years, while they may not be gushing into each other's eyes all the time and have the, very newlywed romance thing going on, they still have just this immense amount of love for each other. And they are so connected, so intertwined, that it's truly beautiful. And that's why it's so hard when one of them passes away, and usually soon the other one follows, is because they're just an extension of each other. And they've spent their whole lives, or most of their lives, loving and knowing each other and growing in knowledge. It's the same with Christ. It really is. Every year, there's something more that we can learn. We can grow closer to God. I grew up for 30 years of my life not knowing anything about Catholicism. And so when I came into the Catholic Church, it was, whoa, overwhelming. All of this stuff that you can learn about the saints and about the catechism and the history of the church. And wow, it was really overwhelming. And I was just wanting to dive in fully and completely into everything. But I got overwhelmed really, really quickly. And so I kind of had to back off and slow down and not be so, ambitious. Just find something that I wanted to really focus on and just dive into that. So like a couple years ago, I just really dived in to the book of James and spent an entire year studying it because it's my favorite non-gospel New Testament book. And I actually wrote a reflections book about that year that I spent, and it was a really fruitful time. So we can never grow enough in love for God, and we should always, always be learning about Him. And then today we see Christ talk to her about how the graces that He bestows on her withholds His punishments. And He says, only because of you do I withhold my punishments. You restrain me, and I cannot vindicate the claims of my justice. You bind my hands with your love. And so we see here that when we respond to God's graces, when we are obedient to His will, we can really keep His justice at bay. God is just, but He's also merciful. And I'm gathering from this book that Christ would rather be merciful than show His full justice. He wants to shower people with mercy. And so people like Sister Faustina hold that justice at bay because she prays so much for sinners. And because she prays for them, they are showered with mercy, which takes the place of Christ's justice. Then we read in 1194, she's got this sister. And this sister looked to be coming to her because, I have some doubts. And please, Sister Faustina, tell me about these spiritual matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then Sister Faustina finds out that that was not quite genuine. Actually, what this sister was doing was just trying to get Sister Faustina's opinion. And then she was going to take it and kind of gossip about it. And Sister Faustina says she added distortions and additions. And this upsets her because she's, kind of been slandered. And that's not okay. We shouldn't do that. And gossip is a hard one. Gossip is really a hard one. And slander, not to distort people's words and take them out of context or add our own thoughts and opinions in order to make someone look bad. And so what does she do? She prays for that person. I'm telling you, she's way better than me because I would just want to go pick a fight with that person. But she says, I resolved to pray for her because only prayer can enlighten that soul. And so I think what she's trying to garner for that sister's soul is enlightenment that what she did was not right. And instead of Sister Faustina going to her and having a conflict, why did you take my words out of context? Or why did you make distortions about what I said? Instead, she just prays for her and asking probably for God to enlighten her soul so that she realizes herself that what she did was wrong. And then the last one, I think, is truly a powerful reading. You know, our Christian life is going to be full of, like she says, thorny paths, hailstorms, persecutions, people forsaking us, people conspiring against us. We're going to have raging storms break out, and sometimes the horizon is going to go dark. And what should we do? What should our response be? To bail and jump ship? You know, a lot of people do that. And as we sit here and we're comfortable and we're listening to me talk and we're like, no, if a storm comes into my life, I will cling to the Lord. But sometimes we just don't. We lose that faith and that hope, and we bail when the storm comes. I know that's what I did. Now, my faith was not super rooted when I was 17, as most 17-year-olds' faith is not super rooted. There are some. But I didn't know what to do when the storm came into my life. And instead of clinging to God, I turned away from God. I thought that would solve my problems, I guess. It didn't solve them at all. It only made things worse. And so we have to cling to Christ in the storms. There are going to be storms. And that's why I can't stand messages to Christians that everything's going to be perfect in your life, everything's going to be rosy. It's why I have a really hard time with a lot of Christian movies and TV shows, is because they just paint life as always working out perfectly. Nice little package. There's a little storm, but we all work it out perfectly because we prayed hard enough, or we, did the right thing. And at the end of the story, everybody's happy. And it just doesn't always work out that way. And I struggle with those kinds of movies because people may watch them and get the wrong idea. I may have mentioned this before, but one of my favorite Catholic movies actually is The Way. And the reason why I love it so much, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but after 243 days, I can't remember everything that I've said. The reason why I love it so much is because it shows very messy lives. But at the end of the movie, not everybody's life is wrapped up perfectly. And it just shows the reality of life. Sometimes we have very deep spiritual moments. And the movie The Way definitely shows that. It's a movie about a guy walking the way of St. James in Spain for his deceased son. He's spreading his ashes along the way, which is not in keeping with Catholic teaching, but the movie itself is really, really good. What I really love about that movie is that it just shows the realness of people in storms and in trials, and how not everybody always picks the perfect path and not everything always turns out perfect, but we have to carry on. And so especially for those of us that really live out our Catholic faith, hang on in the storms. I know it's hard, and I know it's easy for me to say that right now when I'm not going through any particular storms right at this moment, but it is something that I learned going through a lot of storms previously in my life, that turning away from God just is not the answer. So like Sister Faustina says, I will trust in your mercy, oh my God, and my hope will not be disappointed. So that is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I'll see you back here for day 244. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.